Hello everybody, Tristan Ogilvie here, riding shotgun to IGN's own Mistress of the Macabre. It's too late, Lucy, we can't do over. Lucy O'Brien.
Hello, Tristan.
Hello, and thank you for joining me. You are presently, well, you've just reviewed the Evil Within's first expansion, The Assignment. You've been playing it on the Xbox One.
That's right, but it's also available on PC, PS3, PS4, and 360. So this is the first of a two-part story-driven DLC focusing on a different character in the Evil Within universe. So this is Julie Kidman. Now, we're very familiar with Julie from the Evil Within main game.
Right.
But a lot of the time, she was quite absent during that game and doing mysterious deeds. So this sort of story-driven...
fills in the blanks.
Yeah, it fills in the blanks, exactly. Yeah, I mean, for starters, I'm just going to say outright that I really enjoyed this game.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. It's about 3.5 hours long. It took me a little under 4 hours, actually, but that's because I just spent so much time kind of mucking about and exploring unnecessarily.
Well, you're a professional. You have to
that's great. Exactly.
But the one thing I've just read your review. The first thing that stands out to me is how dramatically different the gameplay is in the as opposed to the main Evil Within game, which is very kind of survival action horror, I should say. This is a bit more stealth.
It is. Well, the whole game is stealth.
Right.
In fact, 95% of the time, Kidman is unarmed.
Right.
All she has is her trusty torch, which obviously marks a huge departure from the Evil Within proper, which was kind of gun heavy.
Yeah.
So this is like there are a couple of things that sort of evoked alien isolation for me in this game. I mean, this is all about sort of getting to places by crawling around and avoiding confrontation rather than inviting it.
And air vents.
A lot of air
nothing
vents.
but air vents.
But yeah, it's. I mean, I really, really enjoyed this new focus on stealth, and I think for the most part, Tango Gameworks has done a really good job at sort of making you feel underpowered and making you feel vulnerable.
And would you say that as a result of that, this is a scarier experience?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think that for the most part, having no ammo whatsoever, having no weapon, coupled with these terrifying environments that Tango Gameworks is so good at designing, it's definitely a more tense experience for sure.
And I suppose given it's only sort of 3.5 hours long, it can sustain that for its entirety, right?
Yeah, that's right. And it's, I'll also say that I liked the story. I liked the story a lot.
Whoa. See, you always expect that to happen, but then when it happens, you're like, ah!
Yeah. I like the story a lot more in this game because I liked Kidman a lot more.
Well, let's talk about her.
Yeah.
Voiced by Jennifer Carpenter. Who played Dexter Morgan's sister, Deborah.
That's right.
For fans of the serial killing superhero.
So she's a lot more knowledgeable than Sebastian was. Now, I think I've actually gone around in a circle, so I'm just going to backtrack a little bit.
It's all part of the psychological horror.
Yeah,
it's not really a circle.
That's right. But yeah, she's... Here we go. So this is it, just to give you guys some context. This is the very beginning of the game, which introduces you to Kidman's particular set of skills, which, as I said, is very, very different to Sebastian's. So everything here is all about just not being seen.
Yep.
So a lot of the time you'll spend in this game, the time that you'll spend is basically being stuck to a wall. And calling out to enemies to distract them. So let's have a go.
Are the enemies kind of very similar to the ones found in the main game, or is it sort of a new suite of enemies? Or
I mean, they are very similar for the most part. There are a couple of new enemies, and there's one in particular which we may or may not see throughout this playthrough that I absolutely loved. I would have liked a bit more variation in enemy design, just because I felt like this was such a cool departure from the main game.
Yep.
It would have been nice to have seen a little bit more variation, particularly considering Julie's, got such a different set of skills.
Yeah. And speaking of that, given that this is more of a stealth game, does that mean there's no... Because the main game had a lot of sort of boss fights and things. Is there no boss fights in this? Or?
There is a couple... there are a couple of boss fights, I should say, rather. Now, see, I just lured that one away. So that's one of her abilities. Okay, I've been spotted.
Shouldn't she turn her torch off while she's trying to be sneaky?
There are a lot of instances like this in the assignment where you know that the enemy has seen you, you can hear it running after you, and you're desperately trying to get the door open.
Right.
Which, of course, is very exhilarating. Also, one thing to note, as you'll see there, Julie is a lot more... She may not have a weapon, but she's a lot more sort of adept at sort of surviving in this universe in general than Sebastian was.
Right.
So she has auto health, and she doesn't need to use syringes. And she's a lot faster, so she doesn't run out of puff like Sebastian did. Now I'm looking for something here. What am I looking for? Oh, here we go.
I think you can turn your torch off. I'm just saying.
The torch is actually a little the torch is an interesting new addition. It could have been utilized a little bit more than it was, but I do like the way so the torch can reveal certain hidden doorways and stuff like that, and you are using it a lot. Certainly later on in the game, in the darker environments, you're relying on it to see.
It's not so much a torch as some kind of spectral beam. Would you call it a spectral beam?
I would call it a spectral beam.
Okay, good.
Now,
we've agreed.
That was idiotic, so I'm just going to get in. No, it's too late. It's too late. Now, one of the...
Drink the wine.
One of the things to note here is that the enemies, once they spot you, they will kill you.
But you
have to run
evade,
away.
Right? Yeah.
You can evade.
Yep.
You can evade. But they will pursue you rather relentlessly. Let's see if I can get into here. Okay. See, you can see up on the top left-hand corner there, my health is
just
refilling.
recharges whenever you're hidden.
Yeah.
Whoa.
No. Oh, okay.
You're not hidden.
I'm not hidden.
Perhaps... Oh, nice one. Should we maybe jump... I know you got a few save games. Maybe we should jump ahead.
Yep.
Because we need to talk about the quality of the environments.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you want to skip ahead to some sort of awesome...
Yep. Let's do that now.
Okay, so we just jump cut our way to Chapter 2 to take a look at one of the more visually striking environments in the game. What is this area, Lucy, that we're now in?
Well, this is basically, if I'm correct, I'm just trying to actually get my bearings.
It's been literally a day since you played this game.
I know. I think we're coming out of the sewers right now.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I do want to mention it's so much of what makes The Evil Within fantastic in terms from a design perspective is what Tango Gameworks does with lighting.
Right.
And it's sort of that that sort of thing where you think you see something, but it's a shadow.
Yeah.
Something darts out of the corner of your eye, and you realize that it's a flickering fluorescence.
It's just a black cat, and it's a save point.
Okay, we might skip this because I don't really want to...
Is this spoilers?
I don't really want to spoil. Oh, and now we're in a boss fight.
Oh, here we go. Well, we alluded to it earlier. There are boss fights in this game.
Yeah, so...
Stealthy boss
One
fights.
thing that I do, I suppose my biggest criticism, and it's really not too much of a big deal because I like the feeling of being underpowered. I mean, I think that it's such a crucial element of any survival horror game.
Absolutely.
Is that the old school Resident Evil style controls, which The Evil Within somewhat implements. I mean, just in terms of the fact that they're quite sort of awkward, lumbering, everyman characters. Doesn't always serve stealth gameplay too well. So very occasionally, I sort of found myself like stuck behind cover and trying to get out of cover.
Right.
And in this particular instance as well, this is what the boss fight that I mentioned earlier. There you can see right there. It's just it's a very slightly sort of awkward. The way that she moves out of cover is just slightly awkward, and it's difficult.
Not fluid.
It's not fluid, and it's difficult when you're being pursued by creatures who are very agile.
So then it sort of brings you more into a sort of a frustration.
Well, I mean,
frustrated state rather than just a tense one.
In this instance, in particular, as well, because this relies on you hiding the entire time. Because
what do you use? Hide him to death?
Well,
it's a hide 'em up.
You do have one sort of attack skill, which is a stealth attack.
Okay.
But in order to pull that off, you need to be directly behind the enemy with their back facing you. Right. And these enemies don't stay still for long. So yeah, it can be a little frustrating, considering how sort of awkward you move compared to how agile they are.
Right.
But again, it's a small complaint. But I do want to point out before we end as well just how awesome this environment is. I mean, this whole boss battle takes place behind these curtains, and much of it involves hiding under the bed, and essentially, again, that kind of Alien Isolation style, hiding under the bed, hiding in a locker, and holding your breath, and just hoping that you don't get spotted. And I just think okay, so this is one of the axes that you use for your stealth attack.
Oh. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I love this kind of. I love this bizarre sort of old school mental hospital, twisted Victorian style torture chamber aesthetic.
Everything's grimy and rusty.
Yeah, exactly. That Mikami and Tango Gameworks are such fans of.
I think it looks fantastic, and especially since concurrently with this game, you've been reviewing the Resident Evil Revelations 2 episodic series.
That's right.
It's not really a fair comparison when it comes to sort of environment design and lighting and all that kind of stuff.
Well, exactly. I just put on some music there just to make this a little more thrilling.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest criticisms of Revelations 2 has been that environmental design has just been so bland. Mm. And yeah, okay,
it's 50 Shades of Grey.
It is 50 Shades of Grey.
Way.
And I totally admit that Mikami is using familiar survival horror design tropes here. I mean, we saw gurneys, there are discarded wheelchairs, but it's what he does with those kind of cliches, and the way he twists them and bends them and again lights them makes his work, in my opinion, such a standout. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this game. I'm really looking forward to the Consequence, which comes out. It doesn't have a set release date. It's just later this American spring. So yeah, I am giving The Evil Within: The Assignment a 8.5.
Nice, 8.5. Oh, this could be a good place to finish this little review. No, it's still going.
It's still going. But thank you very much, Tristan, for joining me.
Well, thank you very much. For all things The Evil Within, The Assignment, The Consequence, and just the main game itself, stick with IGN.